Before the leap, there was silence. Before joy, there was the ache of decades. Before the prophetic fulfillment, there was what felt like divine forgetfulness. This is not just Elizabeth's story. It's the story of anyone who has ever waited and waited and waited. Before the prophetic fulfillment, there was what felt like divine forgetfulness. In the quiet hill country of Judea, in a time when miracles were whispered but rarely seen, lived a couple named Zechariah and Elizabeth. Zechariah was not just a priest, he was a faithful servant of God, worn by years of ministry, ritual, and unanswered prayers. Every year he showed up in the temple. Every year he blessed others, even as his own household remained untouched by the promise of new life. He was faithful even when his prayers felt forgotten. Was silent, he kept walking in obedience. He spoke blessings into others' futures while his own heart stayed waiting. Elizabeth, gracious, kind, and dignified, walked through her village with the smile of a woman who had learned to keep hope and heartbreak in the same breath. She came from a line of faithful believers, but year after year, her womb remained silent. Everyone said they were blameless, but she still bore the weight of childlessness. In her culture, this wasn't just a personal grief, it was a public shame. Women whispered at the well. Children laughed in streets that had never known her footsteps as a mother. And yet, she still prayed. They both did, even when God felt far. Then, one ordinary day, after years of extraordinary disappointment, Zechariah's name was drawn. He was chosen to burn incense in the temple, a once-in-a-lifetime moment. And that's when it happened. An angel appeared. Your prayer has been heard. Not the prayer from last week, not the desperate plea from last month, the prayer from decades ago. Your wife Elizabeth will bear a son. But here's the twist. Zechariah didn't shout in joy. He didn't dance. He didn't run to proclaim the miracle. He doubted. He looked at the lines on his wife's face and the stiffness in her step. He measured the promise against time, and the promise came up short. So the angel silenced him. 9 months, no words, just wonder. And Elizabeth, she received her promise through a husband who returned home mute. How does it feel to hear a prophecy from the lips of someone who can't explain it? How do you hold joy when the silence around you makes it feel like it might all slip away? The days turned to weeks, the weeks to months. And in that sacred silence, Elizabeth wrestled. Some days she sang to herself. Other days she sat alone. Some nights she laid awake, hand on her belly, asking, was this real? Have you ever had to carry something no one else understands? Have you ever waited so long you began to wonder if you were wrong? And yet, the promise grew. Every ache in her body was a reminder. Every stretch, every flutter, it was happening. She wasn't just expecting, she was transforming. And then Mary arrived. Not just a visitor, a sign. Mary's greeting cracked something open, and the baby in Elizabeth's womb leaped. Spirit recognized spirit. Promise confirmed promise. Elizabeth cried out, not with her mind, but from her spirit. Blessed are you among women. In that moment, years of silence were drowned in holy confirmation. Time passed, the house filled with neighbors, relatives, the sounds of expectation. The baby was born, a son. Custom demanded he be named after his father, but Elizabeth, strong in her spirit, said no, his name is John. Confusion swirled. They turned to Zechariah. He wrote the same words. His name is John. And in that act of obedience, his voice returned. Tears flowed, praise erupted, prophecy fulfilled. The silence before the leap was over. And what came next was purpose. John would not be ordinary. He would prepare the way for the Messiah. But that purpose didn't begin in the wilderness. It began in the womb of a woman who dared to believe.
Elizabeth's story is our story. She teaches us that God doesn't operate on our timeline. Delay is not denial. Silence is not absence. And when heaven finally moves, it always is worth the wait. So today's lesson is maybe you've been waiting for the healing, for the reconciliation, for the breakthrough. Maybe you've served faithfully like Zechariah, only to be met with silence. Or perhaps you've wept privately like Elizabeth, while still clinging to hope. Hear this. Your prayer has been heard. Your leap is coming. And when it comes, it will be so glorious, you'll forget how long you've waited. So don't despise the silence. Don't curse the delay. The promise is growing in the dark, and soon it will leap. Let this story sink in your spirit. Share it with someone waiting. And remember, your silence has purpose. This is only the beginning.